Imagine a night tens of thousands of years ago. No electricity, no skyscrapers, no clocks, no calendars. No modern science to explain why thunder boomed across the sky, why the sun disappeared every evening, or why a healthy loved one suddenly collapsed and never woke up again. A group of ancient humans sits around a campfire. Outside lies the darkness, the calls of wild animals, the wind howling through the trees, and glowing eyes flickering somewhere in the night. To them, the world was never silent. The sun seemed like a giant deity traversing the sky. The moon felt like someone's eye looking down. Thunder sounded like the roar of an invisible creature. Mighty beasts like bears, tigers, eagles, and bison seemed to possess power far beyond that of humans. And the biggest question began to emerge. What is controlling this world? From that question, the first seeds of belief and religion were born. Not through scriptures, not through magnificent temples, not through clerics in ceremonial robes. Rather, they were born through fear, gratitude, imagination, memories of the dead, and the burning desire to survive in a world too vast and too mysterious. The need to explain the world. From very early on, humans differed from animals in one extraordinary way. They didn't just live in the world, they also tried to explain it. A deer hears thunder and runs. A wolf sees fire and stays away. But ancient humans heard thunder and wondered, who created that sound? They saw the sun rise every morning, bringing light and warmth, helping plants grow, and allowing them to see their paths and their prey. Then, when the sun set, darkness encroached, wild beasts emerged, and the cold took over. Therefore, it is easy to understand why the sun became one of the earliest objects of reverence across many cultures. To ancient people, the sun wasn't just a distant fireball, it was the source of life. It dictated day and night, the seasons, the weather, warmth, and even their sense of security. If the sun disappeared for too long, the cold arrived. If the sunlight was too harsh, the earth dried up. Because harvests depended on its light, the sun was almost certainly the first deity humans could see with their naked eyes. Perhaps long before humans built pyramids, before the first cities arose, and before gods were given distinct names, they had looked up at the sun and felt something profoundly primal. That thing is far more powerful than we are. And from that feeling of insignificance, worship began. Animal spirits and totemism. But the sun wasn't the only thing that left ancient people in awe. Animals were also a crucial part of early beliefs. Think about the life of hunter-gatherers. They survived off animals. They studied footprints, calls, migration routes, mating seasons, and hunting behaviors. A single deer could feed an entire group. A bison provided meat, hide, bones, and horns. A wolf could be an enemy, but also a model of teamwork and endurance. An eagle soaring high in the sky seemed to touch the realm of the divine. To ancient humans, animals were not simply food. They were rivals, benefactors, symbols, the souls of nature. Many groups believed that certain animal species possessed sacred powers. They might view the bear as a symbol of strength, the snake as a symbol of rebirth because it sheds its skin, the bird as a messenger between heaven and earth because it flies, the bison as the embodiment of abundance, and the wolf as the spirit of the pack. This forms the foundation of totemism. A clan might view a specific animal as their sacred ancestor, believing they shared a special connection with it. They might refuse to hunt it, or if they did, they had to perform rituals to ask for permission. They painted it on cave walls and wore its teeth, bones, feathers, or claws as amulets. To modern eyes, this might look like superstition, but to ancient people, it was a way of declaring, we are not separate from nature, we belong to it. Cave art and the power of ritual. One of the most famous pieces of evidence of ancient spiritual life is cave art. On the walls of caves in Europe, Asia, Africa, and beyond, prehistoric people painted wild bison, horses, deer, rhinos, mammoths, human hands, and mysterious symbols. These paintings were not simply decorative art. Many researchers believe they were tied to hunting rituals, beliefs about animal spirits, or the spiritual journeys of shamans. Ancient people likely believed that by drawing an animal on a cave wall, they could connect with its spirit. By performing a ritual before the drawing, the hunt would be more successful. Imagine a group of hunters standing in a dark cave. The firelight flickers. The painted bison on the wall seems to move. An elder in the group, perhaps a shaman, holding bones, animal fur, or a sharp stone, whispers prayers. They had no guns, no antibiotics, no hospitals. Every hunt could be their last. So before facing the real beast, they confronted its sacred image in the cave. Rituals became a way to mitigate fear, build confidence, and bind the group together. The soul and the afterlife. A profoundly important element in early religion was the belief in the soul. Ancient people undoubtedly witnessed death time and time again. A person who was talking, eating, and laughing yesterday lay motionless today. The body was still there, the face was still there, but something had vanished. The breath stopped. The eyes went blank. The voice fell silent. And the question arose, where did that person go? This is likely one of the deepest origins of the belief in a soul. Dreams only fortified this conviction. Ancient people might dream of the deceased returning to speak with them. They might dream of flying into the sky, walking through forests, encountering wild beasts, or meeting their ancestors. Upon waking, everything vanished, yet the emotions remained intensely real. If we can meet the dead in our dreams, do they still exist somewhere? If we can leave our bodies in a dream, is there an invisible part inside us? From this, many ancient communities formed the belief that humans possess a soul, and that this soul could continue to exist after the physical body died. This is why burial rituals emerged. The dead were not abandoned like animal carcasses. They were placed in graves. Sometimes they were buried with tools, jewelry, food, weapons, red ochre, or objects of special significance. These actions reveal that the living weren't just disposing of a corpse. They were preparing their loved one for another journey. Perhaps they believed the dead needed supplies in the afterlife. Perhaps they feared the spirit would return if not properly laid to rest. Or perhaps it was simply love that made it impossible to abandon their kin. Whatever the reason, funeral rites reveal something deeply profound. Humans do not just know death. Humans know how to grieve death. And from that grief, religion grew. Animism and the role of the shaman. Beyond the sun, animals, and the souls of the dead, ancient people believed that nature itself possessed a spirit. Great trees had souls, mountains had souls, rivers, stones, wind, rain, fire, the sea, and caves all could contain some invisible power. This belief is commonly known as animism. In the animistic worldview, humans were not the absolute center. Humans were merely one participant in the vast web of life. To take something from nature, humans had to show respect, ask for permission, or offer an exchange. To hunt, you had to ask the animal's spirit. To chop down a tree, you had to revere the tree's spirit. To cross a mountain, you had to avoid offending the mountain god. To traverse a river, you had to make an offering to the river spirit. While this sounds foreign to modern society, in ancient times, it was how humans established a relationship with their environment. When you depend entirely on the forest, rivers, rain, sun, wild animals, and soil, you do not view nature as inanimate. You view it as a world with will, emotion, and power. Therefore, early religion did not begin with complex doctrines, but with the feeling that everything around them was alive. In many ancient communities, the figure with a special role in spiritual life was the shaman. Shamans were not necessarily like priests in later organized religions. They were usually intermediaries between the human world and the spirit world. When someone fell ill, the shaman performed healing rituals. When a hunt failed, the shaman sought the reason in the unseen world. When there was a drought, the shaman prayed for rain. They used drums, dances, chants, masks, smoke, fire, herbs, animal bones, feathers, and sacred stones. These rituals didn't just summon spirits, they created a powerful emotional state for the entire community. In the firelight, with the rhythmic beat of drums and moving bodies, everyone sang, feared, and hoped together. An individual no longer felt alone. The whole group merged into a single narrative. That is the social power of ritual. It turns fear into action, the uncontrollable into something that can be petitioned, and a scattered group into a community bound by shared belief. The shift to agriculture and the birth of mythology. When humans entered the agricultural age, beliefs evolved. Previously, hunter-gatherers relied heavily on wild animals and migration seasons. But with the advent of farming, humans became dependent on soil, rain, crop cycles, seeds, the sun, and the rhythms of time. Consequently, gods associated with fertility, harvests, Mother Earth, rain, thunder, the sun, and the moon took on greater importance. If a harvest failed, the whole village could starve. If the rain came on time, life continued. Ancient people began organizing seasonal festivals, sowing seeds, praying for rain, harvesting, and giving thanks to heaven and earth. They offered sacrifices like grain, fruit, animals, wine, bread, or precious items. This was the moment religion became more tightly interwoven with calendars, villages, power structures, and social order. As communities grew, beliefs required clearer forms. Deities were named, rituals were systematized, places of worship were constructed, and religious specialists gained higher status. From small rituals around a campfire, humanity gradually moved toward temples, mythology, clergy, sacrifices, laws, and complex religious systems. Mythology also arose from the need to explain the world. Before science existed, mythology was how humans answered life's greatest questions. Why are there a sun and a moon? Why must humans die? Why does winter arrive and spring return? Why does fire exist? Why does the sea rage? Why do women give birth? Why do snakes shed their skin? Why is there a rainbow after a storm? Mythology was not just fairy tales. It was the mental map of the ancients. It made a chaotic world less terrifying. It transformed lightning into the voice of a god, death into a journey, the harvest into a gift, and disaster into a lesson. Most importantly, it gave humanity a sense that life had meaning. The psychology of belief and sacred objects. But why did religion appear almost everywhere? Part of the answer lies within the human brain itself. Humans are exceptional at recognizing patterns. If we hear a rustle in the bushes, we tend to think, there is something in there. It might just be the wind, but if it is a tiger, that suspicion saves our lives. The primitive brain would rather mistake a shadow for a predator than ignore a real one. This survival mechanism also made humans prone to seeing intent in nature. Lightning seemed intentionally cast. Plagues felt like punishment, Rain arriving after a ritual felt as though the gods had listened. Furthermore, humans possess powerful imaginations, long memories, complex language, and a profound capacity for storytelling. If one person recounted a dream where an ancestor warned them of danger, that story could spread through the entire group. If the danger actually materialized, the belief grew stronger. Therefore, early religion wasn't simply the invention of a single individual. It was the culmination of many factors: the fear of nature, the need for explanation, love for the deceased, dream experiences, community bonding, and the human gift for storytelling. Sacred objects also played a pivotal role: a strangely shaped stone, an animal tooth, a fragment of bone, a small figurine of a mother goddess, a mask, a drum, an amulet, a cave painting. To modern humans, these might just be objects, but to ancient people, they could be the dwelling places of unseen forces. Objects made belief tangible. You cannot hold a spirit in your hand, but you can hold an amulet. You cannot see an ancestor, but you can keep their belongings. You cannot control the rain, but you can offer a sacrifice to the rain god. Sacred objects were the bridge between the visible and invisible worlds, helping humans feel a sense of agency against disease, death, natural disasters, and famine. Conclusion: a search for meaning in the dark. Looking back, we can see that early religion was nowhere near as naive as many people assume. It was a profoundly human response to an inexplicable world. Before the existence of, ancient people used astronomy, mythology to understand the sun, medicine, rituals to confront disease, psychology, the concept of the soul to explain dreams and death, the state, beliefs to bind their communities together, scientific calendars, festivals to mark the changing seasons. Early religion was simultaneously humanity's first science, first art, first law, and first spiritual therapy. It didn't just answer the question, how does the world work? It answered a much deeper one: who are we in this world? Today, we have telescopes to observe the sun. We have biology to understand animals. We have archaeology to study ancient tombs. We have medicine to explain disease. We have meteorology to forecast storms. But if, one night, you stand alone under a starry sky, deep in a forest, or atop a quiet mountain, you can still feel exactly what ancient people felt: the insignificance, the awe, and the overwhelming sense that this universe is so much vaster than we are. Perhaps that is the starting point of all belief. Not an answer, but a question. When the first humans looked up at the sky, stared into the fire, gazed upon the bodies of their loved ones, or locked eyes with a wild beast in the dark, they began to ask, what lies behind all of this? From that very question, the first gods were born, the first rituals were performed, the first stories were told by the firelight. That is where religion began, not in stone temples, but in the trembling hearts of ancient humans, trying to make sense of a world that was terrifying, wondrous, and entirely mysterious. And perhaps, despite having come so far, modern humanity is still doing exactly what they did, searching for meaning amidst the vast darkness of the universe.